Today, on Strange and Suspicious. It's been 10 years since the Malaysian Airlines jumbo jet seemed to disappear into thin air. But new clues may help authorities hone in on one of the biggest disasters in airline history.
There's a company that thinks they can find it, and the Malaysian government is resisting.
I believe the plane might have been shot down.
Shot down after flying for 5 hours off radar?
That would explain the need for a cover-up.
Exactly.
Someone is getting into your cereal box, and product tampering can prove fatal.
There's these Schuylkill notes. It's these small pieces of paper
that have been found in cereal boxes. The content is psychotic.
What bothers me is if they can put a note in a cereal box, what else can they put in a cereal box?
A woman found dead at the base of her staircase. Her husband convicted of murder. But was she really the victim of a killer owl?
Their contention is he smashed her head. She didn't die from blunt force trauma.
The autopsy photos showed that some of the scars in her head were in the shape of a talon.
Strange objects all over the world with no explanation as to who planted them. Is the culprit an artist, or is it something much stranger?
What if people are like priming us to do, oh, it's an art installation, right? And we're gonna leave it for several weeks. But what if there's a sinister motive to this, maybe terrorism?
I am a savant when it comes to airline crashes. I just know dates. I know a lot about this for some reason. And Malaysian Airlines is the biggest mystery in my lifetime. This plane disappeared.
This Friday marks 10 years since the disappearance of MH370. Now, tragically on that, some 239 people were on board.
And now there's a company that wants to find it and thinks they can find it, and the Malaysian government is resisting.
Let's give a little bit of context. On March 8th, 2014, there was a flight that was leaving Malaysia, going from Malaysia to Beijing. It carried about 240 people. 38 minutes after the flight takes off, the air traffic control center loses connection. About an hour after the flight takes off, the Malaysian military system loses them off of the radar. They're off of the radar because the flight deviates from the path.
And flies for hours, apparently.
Inside the cockpit, okay, you've got basically 3 ways to track this plane. The first one was a transponder, which was turned off. So that means your secondary radar can't pick it up.
Which is a purposeful act.
Purposefully, yeah, it's an easy switch. And then the second one, though, is something called the ACARS. But that eventually looks like it went off too.
So you have 2 out of the 3 methods for tracking this plane that weren't working, that were appear to be purposefully disrupted.
But we do know it reversed course. We do know that it was last seen by the Malaysian military radar again, going the wrong direction back over towards the Indian Ocean.
If you look at the course direction of the flight after the second tracker was manually turned off, that was when they changed direction. They no longer thought anybody had eyes on them. The reason that the Malaysian government did not come out with this until a little bit later is they did not want to tell the rest of the world just how advanced some of their air traffic control was on a military level. More of a national security risk, but they were tracking them for quite a long period of time. The thing where this kind of goes off is that I believe something happened in that flight where maybe the co-pilot took over, but then I think the plane might have been shot down.
Shot down after flying for 5 hours off radar?
Yes, and this is the reason I think that could be true. We have a witness statement from some of the residents who inhabited one of the islands near the Maldives. They believe they saw this plane in the early morning hours, and it was flying in a direction that would have taken it towards a military base from the US, Diego Garcia. If there is a plane that a US military base has no way to communicate with, they don't see it on air traffic control, they're going to assume that is a terrorist threat. They will shoot that plane down.
So this is a 911 prevention, takedown, basically. And that would explain maybe the need for a cover-up.
Exactly.
In the following years after actually all occurs. There's about 39 pieces of this plane that are found by 27 different people.
Not so fast. Because there's some sketchiness here with some of the, especially one guy who says he found all these parts all of a sudden. There are people who think it was made up.
Investigators are now looking at some of the wreckage which is confirmed to be from Malaysia Airlines, and one of those pieces is called a flaperon. Now the flaperon is a piece that's not on every plane, but a 777 has this between the landing flaps and the ailerons. You can see here that's in an extended position, right? So one of the investigators, Larry Vance, believes it's extended because the pilot was trying to bring the plane down for a soft landing. But why? Because he didn't want it obliterated into 1,000 pieces. He wanted it to be sunk in one solid piece and not be found.
There's something about all the parts that were found. That's the real other conspiracy here, is that people think if this was the US military's fault, if the plane was wrongfully shot down, the parts have been planted.
Some people claim that it had, charred parts to it.
The top layer of paint has been singed, scorched black. It also shows some signs of melting.
And so I see where that's coming from there.
Is there a world where a plane can crash and there can be survivors that are stranded somewhere?
No, because if I survived, I'm letting you know I survived.
But if the plane is taken down and you don't have a radio and you're in this remote area, is it possible?
Water landings are extremely rare, even with a great pilot.
Miracle in the Hudson.
We are getting word of a U.S. Airways plane crash in the Hudson River.
All 150 passengers and 5 crew members survived.
That's why it was a miracle, because it never happens,
There's a theory that Captain Shaw, who was the captain of the plane, intentionally crashed it. The reason why this theory is floating around and sort of catching some wind is that apparently they found in Captain Shaw's home a flight simulation.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I made as a community service.
And this flight simulation was sort of geared toward the area where they think the plane disappeared.
You could look at the flight logs. He deleted his final flight log in the simulator in his home. That's only for him to see.
Yeah, this simulator is a smoking gun. Why would the Malaysian government resist a highly sophisticated company that could help find this airplane? Why?
Malaysian culture has a very, very heavy stigma around suicide.
Yes.
And one of the theories surrounding this case is that the pilot was taking his own life in addition to possibly taking others.
Yes.
So I feel like culture is a big component to this.
There's so many things to this. I think we actually need to find the plane itself.
It's worth trying to get the truth versus trying. The bad PR is damned if you do, damned if you don't. Let's get the truth. Why not?
Coming up.
So there's these Schuylkill notes. It's this phenomenon. It's these small pieces of paper that are found in a variety of places.
It's a lot of conspiracy theory stuff that's in the content of these notes. At what point does it move past note writing to something even worse?
Most of you guys probably don't know anything about this Tylenol scare many, many decades ago, where there was product tampering with Tylenol.
Oh, yeah.
Chicago, people died, people were poisoned.
This reminds me of that.
Totally.
That there is this crazy product tampering in Pennsylvania with Schuylkill notes.
So there's these Schuylkill notes. It's this phenomenon. It's these small pieces of paper that are found in a variety of places, inside of food packaging, along hiking trails, in state parks. They just look insane. But the earliest note was found in 2015, but the latest note was found sometime in 2024. And they all seem to be concentrated in Schuylkill County in Pennsylvania. So it makes me wonder, is this just one person that has a lot going on up here who's writing these weird gobbledygook notes that don't seem to make any sense?
It's a lot of conspiracy theory stuff that's in the content of these notes. that have been found in cereal boxes, as Jamie was saying, along hiking trails and national parks.
Let's get back to cereal boxes, because if they can put a note in a cereal box, what else can they put in a cereal box? And that's why I mentioned the Tylenol scare, because that's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
That's why you see that, the aluminum they'll put on the top of an aspirin bottle or whatever. It all happened after the Tylenol scare. But if they're getting into cereal boxes,
you open up the bag like this. So I poured it out in my bowl, and out comes this paper that was all folded up. It's not the note that really bothers me, it's just these notes are found inside food.
With the cereal boxes, you have the box and then you have the bag.
I gotta tell you, if they're getting into the actual bag inside the box and they're doing it in multiple products, I'm starting to feel, and these notes are crazy but varied, it feels like it's more than one person, and maybe people working at plants.
Or you don't even have to do it at the plant. You buy a box of Lucky Charms, you go home, you open the bag, you have your own sealer, put it back in, and then go take it back to the store.
What bothers me is even if you're right on that, it's like, okay, these are notes. What if they do something way more sinister? And they have, and they're showing they have the ability to do that and take it back to major stores.
It's about the control of fear. That's what they're doing. It's fear mongering.
What's noteworthy about this, though, is the content, and the content is psychotic to me. It's delusional, it's conspiracy, it's paranoid, and that makes me think one person. And you're right. At what point does it move past note writing to something even worse?
We want to find out who is doing this. It's obviously somebody's idea of a weird joke, but you don't want to let it get any further than that.
The notes are being found in a concentrated area, Schuylkill, Pennsylvania, so that tells me that it probably is one person.
I question that actually, because where a story breaks and there's local press about
and there's a couple in Ohio.
There is a visual piece of evidence which has been circulated in the press. So when I talk about this potentially being multiple people and somebody could be copying it, they have a roadmap. They know what this looks like. They know the kind of language that's used.
If we look at the contents of what is in these notes, it feels like something that a group of people will rally together to push.
I think it's one guy, because if it's a group of people, somebody's gonna crack, somebody's gonna mess up. It's one dude.
Some of these notes are being found not in food. They're being found in trails. One guy said that he walked outside and it was perfectly wrapped up and clipped. So does that mean that there's more than one person that is a part of this conspiracy that is trying to get the word out?
It means we have an opportunity to catch them, because they're going back. I believe they're repackaging, putting it back on the shelves, and then they're going to these places. There's gonna be a video camera. They need to pour through all that video feed that's out there. They're gonna catch it, and I'm telling you, it's one person.
I'm curious about the timeline, because it started in 2015, so it's been going on for 9, almost 10 years. Has there been a break of time where we haven't seen any notes show up? Does that mean that person, if it is one person, or maybe spent some time in the hospital and now they're back out and they started up again? So if it's more than one person, I would love to see the timeline of every single one.
Coming up. So there is a case where a woman named Kathleen Peterson fell down a flight of stairs at her home. There is a theory that the culprit was an owl.
The autopsy photos showed that, some of the scars in her head were in the shape of a talon.
So there is an infamous case. I would call it a murder case, but now I'm not so sure, where a woman named Kathleen Peterson fell down a flight of stairs at her home. Her husband was tried for murdering her, convicted. It was reversed. He copped a plea of manslaughter. But now there is a theory that the culprit was an owl.
To give you the recap of the story, yes, Kathleen Peterson, 2001, December 9th, Michael Peterson makes a call to 911. Kathleen fell down the stairs. The question was always, did Michael create the 7 different lacerations on the upper neck and the back of the scalp, or this other theory, was she attacked by an owl?
So the prosecution, their contention is that After Kathleen found out that Michael was having sexual relations with men, that this caused a real problem in their marriage, and that was his motive to wanting to kill her, and that he used a fireplace poker to smash her over the head. Well, she didn't die from blunt force trauma. There was no crush to her skull, nothing.
Yeah, no brain damage.
No brain damage, nothing like that.
It was exsanguination, which is
it
blood
was
loss.
just she bled out. So that makes like no sense at all, right? The flip side, which I call now the Hitchcock theory because it's the murderous bird. The problem with that theory is that she went through the front door after they'd been hanging out in the backyard, and once when she went out to the front door, this highly aggressive owl attacked her. Well, and then obviously she ran back into the house up the stairs. Now, if there's all that blood splatter and the feathers and all that stuff, it would presume that the owl went inside the house. Had that happened, he would have said the front door was open. And then we might have considered that there was an intruder or something like that, but that never comes up.
In addition to all this, the custom fireplace piece that was allegedly used, there's no dry blood, there's no damage to the weapon.
Oh, that was like so easily refutable. He could have absolutely washed it. There are oddities with the body. I'll concede.
Okay, hold on. So a guy named Larry Pollard, who is actually a neighbor who knows something about owls in the neighborhood, he's also a lawyer. Here's his theory.
In addition to the deep gash wounds, though, they also are notorious for making the other wounds that are on her body that seem to give a compelling case to this having been done by an owl. The injuries to the eyes and the injuries to the elbows and the little pock marks on her wrist here and here all are consistent with her having her hands over her head, holding onto her hair because something is grasping that hair. Something is trying to remove that hair from her head forcefully.
It doesn't sound like a husband would do that.
The injuries on her scalp look eerily like they came from talons from an
You may
owl.
not know this, but you're lucky enough to have two falconers, which is a very nerdy hobby, but Chris and I both are licensed falconers, all right?
You're also a licensed falconer?
God, this is just the most interesting man alive.
If you were to take the markings that they found on the back of her head, it is interesting that you have at least two of those that have three almost identical looking claw marks.
That's not necessarily a far-fetched theory because in the autopsy photos, it showed that, you know, some of the scars in her head were in the shape of a talon.
I think it's just coincidence. Having worked with a lot of birds of prey and owls specifically, yes, they can get aggressive if you're intruding on their habitat. Were there any other complaints about this nefarious owl?
The Audubon Society even wrote an article about this, and they thought it was really plausible.
I don't think there's a single documented case of an owl killing somebody.
The theory is the owl attacked her, and as he was trying to get away, she fell down the stairs.
Valium was found in her system.
It's from the lacerations
she had
on the
Valium
scalp.
in her system
I was
as
just
well.
going to say she also had diazepam, muscle relaxers, and alcohol, which makes you extremely drowsy. So she was already disoriented going up the stairs. It's easily that she could have fallen.
But here's another thing we need to keep in mind. Husbands or lovers, spouses, whatever, who kill their significant other, their wives, there's usually a history of violence already in the relationship. The fact is that there's absolutely no history of violence between the two of them.
Coming up.
They claim there's been about 246 different monoliths that have been tracked. A lot of them also in very remote places.
Now, the real mystery is not what they are or who put them there or why they put them there, it's how they did it.
So in 2020, this mysterious monolith appeared in Utah. That's the monolith in Utah, which you could explain, I suppose, and say somebody just put it there. But then it appeared 38 more times all over the country. How do you explain that?
In a remote part of the country, a mysterious metal structure that offers a lot more questions than answers.
This one in particular, in 2020, a team of biologists are flying in a helicopter over the desert in southern Utah. They come upon this mysterious pillar dubbed a monolith. The structure was rectangular, it was metallic, it was almost 10 feet tall, and it was firmly planted into the ground. And they found also that it was gone mysteriously 10 days later.
The Las Vegas police posted search and rescue had spotted a monolith in the area of Gas Peak.
There are some websites that track these things, and even before this, they claim there's been about 246 different monoliths that have been tracked. Some of them, though, they don't get there in time to study it enough to see what it's made of. But a lot of them also are in very remote places. So even human-made, it's really weird how they're able to, haul these things up the side of a cliff.
The real mystery is not what they are or who put them there or why they put them there, it's how they did it.
I think that it's more of an artist having an artist installation.
Like a Banksy?
Yeah, so there's this artist named Matty Moe, and everybody asks him, like, did you do it? And he says, I didn't do it, but I also didn't not do it.
The mystery sells the art. There was that whole umbrella thing many years ago. People put up umbrellas out in the desert, like hundreds of them. This is kind of reminiscent.
It's not anything other than somebody's attempt at maybe an art installation.
Also, they say that monolith really also represents McCracken's piece, and that is an artist that made the piece called Fair, and it looks just like all the monoliths.
If these monoliths were placed between 2015 and 2016, that was 4 to 5 years after McCracken died.
But Matty Moe is still alive. And he is actually selling one of the monoliths for $45,000.
How does he own it?
You're gonna have to ask him.
A mysterious metallic monolith has turned up in Turkey.
What's the alternate theory?
What if there's a sinister motive to this? Maybe terrorism, like where people are like priming us to do, oh, it's an art installation, right? And we're gonna leave it for several weeks and something's gonna happen with it. I don't know. So is it coordinated then?
Yes, because it is too consistent for it not to be coordinated. Whether it's an art installation, it's a PR swing, whatever it could be, it is more than likely one team of people.